Okay, before we start, I was like, I made an error in the video. Jason was actually a down wire, electrocuted him. So I just want to put that disclaimer up first. But the intro was bomb.
It was
But
good.
that one piece, so I just want to correct that. We're human and we make human errors. So I want to admit to my human error right now before we get into the podcast so you know what it is. But really quick, we want to welcome you back to Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, where we're going to continue to share life experiences. We have another amazing guest, and we actually went after him when we seen his YouTube video, and we were able to bring Jason. It's Koger, right? Did I say
Yes,
that right?
that's
Okay,
right.
Koger to Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast. Jason, if you could come up, tell the audience just a little bit about yourself. Keep it short because me and Sia, we're gonna get into it. And once Jason finished introducing himself, City's gonna kick off that first question.
Yeah, so my name's Jason Koger. I'm from Owensboro, Kentucky. I'm 45 years old, married with 3 kids. I have a 19-year-old, 18-year-old, and a 14-year-old. So basically, I know we're going to get into the story. I'm a bilateral arm amputee. I got a bionic hand, got a mild electric hook. So I'm sure we're going to get into all that here in just a little bit.
Thank you again for being here with us this evening. As we do with all of our guests, we kind of like to start at the beginning of your journey. So tell us a little about the formative years.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Owensboro, Kentucky. I live right outside of town. I live out in the county. My grandfather, my mom's dad, was a farmer. So he farms about 2,300 acres of corn and soybeans. So where I live at, it's kind of like our little compound, I guess. It was my mom and dad's house. Next door to my mom and dad is my uncle, which I had a cousin that was the same age as myself. And then next door to him was my grandfather's house. And then next door to him was my other uncle, and I had a cousin that was a year older than us that lived there. So we were raised up in the country, riding four-wheelers, almost like I had 3 brothers. I did have a sister. But my whole life, I was like, you know what? One of these days, I'm going to either build or buy my mom and dad's house or something. I wanted to raise my kids the same way that I was raised. My dad was a drill sergeant in the Army, and in 1984, he started a company, and he had $1,500 to his name, all he had. So I watched my dad overcome a lot, and I think being a drill sergeant was a big part of that. I mean, he showed me that when you have a dream, you fight, you do whatever it takes to overcome bad situations. And I never realized that he taught me that until I was 29 years old, whenever I was injured. But now, I live out on the farm. I bought my mom and dad's house, and I married my wife I met in college. Her name's Jenny. And when we got married, I told her that, my goal was to live out here in the neighborhood where I was raised up. And at the time, we had just bought a small house in Owensboro just to start out. And she said, yeah, once we have our second child, we will kind of do that. So anyway, we're out here now.
So I guess we'll start. So as a child growing up, I don't know the distance from everyone. How was your socialization skills with everyone else being so far?
Yeah. So I literally only live 10 miles from town, downtown, right? So it ain't like we're out in the sticks or in the hollers or whatever, you know what I mean? Like we're in the country, we're in the county. But I live on a little road. So like my yard is an acre, and then my cousins and granddads and all them, everybody's got little acre spots that our houses are on, but we're all really next door. And then when you talk about 2,300 acres of corn and soybeans, it's not all in one spot. So, we definitely have neighbors. I only live, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile from a school, an elementary school. And we're just still in the county. We're just not in the middle of houses on top of houses, I guess.
And what was it like, growing up with the military father, um, you know, kind of midline structure? Like, how was that for you guys?
Yeah. So my dad was not a hardcore drill sergeant like you would think. I know most of them, they're the ones that are yelling and in your face and making you do push-ups and making you do stuff. My dad wasn't like that. My dad was, his whole life, he was raised up pretty poor, and he wanted something better for us. And, when my dad got out of the Army and he came home and he started this company, I mean, literally all he had was $1,500 to his name. And I think in the Army, being a drill sergeant, he was just taught, we got to be tough. Like, we got to fight. We got to do what we got to do to be successful or find our success, or, whatever it is. And so my dad was not super, super strict. I mean, obviously he wanted to raise a son and a daughter, and that's all it is, just me and my sister. He wanted to raise a son and a daughter that cared about other people, that was strong in their faith, worked hard. And, at the end of the day, him and my mom, I feel like, did a really good job, raising two kids that would literally give anybody, give a shirt off your back. It's just kind of the way I was raised. I watched my dad when he started this company, and he was very successful. My grandparents, my dad's parents, never owned a home. They always had a house that, was run down, rented, mice running around. And, he had, 3 brothers and a sister and him. And it's just like really, really rough, and not because it was just because they just didn't have the money back then. But when my dad first started making some money, the first thing he did was he bought my grandparents a house in town, and he said they'll never have to worry about another house payment. And my dad, I've seen my dad do stuff for my family, my uncles and extended family, and even people he don't even know. I mean, I've seen my dad, he probably don't even like me talking about it because he don't do it for a pat on the back. He does it because he really cares about people. But I've watched my dad completely furnish a single mother's home whenever she was renting a house and she didn't have anything except a sleeping bag inside of a house. And, I was with him growing up. It's just like, you go and he provided for them. And so my families are, really good people.
I love to hear it. And that's another piece that we love for folks to see is not everyone has been through childhood traumas. Some folks have been given a wonderful and blessed with a wonderful family and a wonderful life, because if you look at me, I don't even deal with family. So it's beautiful to hear.
Yep.
I want to ask, so how was life? It looks like you had an amazing childhood. Was everything good in school? Like, was anything ever indifferent in your childhood or growing up?
No, not really. I mean, I think when you're from a small hometown, everybody knows everybody. And I think today's society is totally different than what it was when I was growing up. Obviously, we have more crime, drugs and that kind of stuff in our hometown. But look at a place, and now that I get to travel all over the world and talk to people, I hear people that are living in big cities, Philadelphia, and there's multiple murders every single day. We have like one murder every 20 years here. You know what I mean? Like everything. I was talking about my buddy Reggie from Philadelphia a minute ago to you before this podcast started. And, Reggie's from the city in Philadelphia, and he came to visit me in Kentucky, and we drove to the gas station to get gas. And I got out of the, pumped my gas or whatever, left my truck running and went inside the store, and he went in with me and he was like, dude, are you not going to turn your truck off or lock the doors? I was like, ain't nobody going to take nothing. And so I think it really just depends on the community that you live in. I feel like I live in a very good community where a lot of people love on each other and care about each other. And obviously, I mean, I think we still have some crime. I don't want people thinking that we have no crime at all. But I think growing up in school, everybody pretty much got along. I don't even know if I was ever in a fight at school, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm sure I had some arguments, but a full-blown fist fight just didn't happen very often. Everybody pretty much kind of did their thing and were pretty cool to each other,
I need to move to Kentucky.
That's a little too south of the Mason-Dixon for me, but it sounds nice, Sounds
Ask
nice.
your family, can we move down there with y'all?
I don't know, but we can kind of jump into like the bread. What was the situation, or where were you situated? When you were electrocuted, were you working? What was that scenario like?
Yep. So it was. I told you my dad owned his own construction company, and I was working for him. And at the time, we were working 7 days a week, 12-hour days for about a year. And at the time, it was March 1st of 2008. It was a Saturday morning. It was going to be the first day that I'd been off work for a long time. And my wife and I had two little girls at the time. Billy Grace, she was 21 months old. And then Campbell, my second daughter, was 3 months old. And that Friday night, I told my wife, I said, tomorrow morning I'm going to get up. I'm going to do something with the girls I haven't done in a really long time. And then after we get done doing whatever, I'm going to put them down for a nap and, just do some things that I just haven't done in a while as a father. And so I woke up on that Saturday morning, March 1st. And in Owensboro at the mall, there was like a little train ride you could go on. And so I took my kids there, met my sister and my niece, and we took the girls on this little train ride and just kind of, I don't know, making memories, and came home and I told my wife, I said, man, there's a lot of stuff I need to get done around the house. And I said, I'm going to put the girls down for a nap and then I'm going to get started on some stuff. And so I went in and I put the girls down for a nap, and it was the first warm day of the year. And I told my wife, I said, hey, I'm going to go ride a four-wheeler around the farm real quick. And I'd already told you that, it's my house, my uncles, my granddad's, my other uncles. So if you go behind my house, there's a gravel lane and it makes a U shape and it ends up at my grandfather's house. And so decided to go on this quick little ride. I mean, it was going to be, 10, 15 minute ride. And I told my wife, I said, I'll be back in a little bit. And she was working on the computer and doing she was a graphic design major at the time. And so she was doing some work. Actually, she was doing a wedding invitation is what she was doing. And so I took off in this U shape. You go behind my house and you got to turn left. And then the next corner you turn to the left, there's a culvert right there. It's the only place you can cross. And I was just kind of looking across the field. I really wasn't paying a whole lot of attention. And I tell people, when you're in your own home, you can get up in the middle of the night and you can walk to the bathroom without tripping over anything or stumping your toe, or because you know where everything is because you're there every day. And I felt like this on this farm. I mean, I've been around this farm millions of times. And so I was kind of just looking across the field and going super slow. And I happened to turn around and look right there where that culvert was. And I seen this line. And by the time I hit my brake, this line hit the front rack of my four-wheeler and it basically bounced back. And whenever it came back to me, it bounced over the handlebars and hit me in the chest and landed on top of my gas tank. And whenever I looked down, I noticed that it was a down power line. And at first I was thinking, I'm not an electrician, but I've always been told if you're on rubber tires, you're okay. So I knew not to get off the four-wheeler. And then I was like trying to figure out, like, how am I going to get this line off of me? And what happened when you got a telephone pole and you got a guide wire, the guide wire broke. So the pole was leaning which made these lines swoop. And I was at the very low point of it. The line was about 30 inches off the ground. And so I looked down to my right, and these lines went to a field pump. And a field pump is what pulls water out of out of the fields whenever they're planted. Well, nothing's planted in March. So I'm starting to think, like, as the power just shut off, there's no reason to have power on something that you're not using. And so I decided that I was going to pick this line up and back off of it because I couldn't go anywhere. So I raised it up high enough, and I backed my four-wheeler up, and I let go of it. I called my cousin, and he came down to where I was. And anyway, he was behind me, and I was turning around looking at him, and I was talking to him, and I was like, man, I ran into it, didn't do anything to me. And I'm really worried that some other kids in the neighborhood is going to ride back here, and they, if they're running wide open and they hit this line, it may decapitate them because it's so low. I wasn't worried about electricity at the time. And as I was turning around looking at my cousin, I just remember saying, I wish that line was just this high. And whenever I put my hand out, I felt the vibration go through my body. I took 7,200 volts of electricity, which some people don't know what 7,200 is, but it's actually more than the electric chair. The electric chair is only 6,800 volts, which are definitely grounded different. But it was enough electricity that it shut my entire neighborhood down. And when you get electrocuted for 30 seconds, and then the breaker kicks. So I took 7,200 volts for 30 seconds. When it shut off, it went through one hand, across my chest, out my other hand, went down through my leg, and they found my tennis shoe 30 feet from where I was. Stopped my heart completely, while I was getting electrocuted for the 30 seconds. And then whenever the power shut off and it threw me off the back of the four-wheeler, I hit the ground hard enough that it started to heart back up. I woke up immediately. I felt like my body was on fire. So I was trying to climb down into a ditch to get to water. And my cousin kept on pulling me out of the ditch. And then he had already called 911. He called my uncle. My uncle came back, and they held me there in the field until the ambulance came. And my other cousin had seen all the commotion, so he came down. And my wife was at my house, but my cousin did not want to come get my wife because he didn't think I was going to live. He didn't want her to see all this. And he called my mom and dad, which my mom and dad at the time were living in town. And my mom basically called my wife and said, hey, Jason's been in an accident. Didn't know what happened. And she came across the field and found me. She found me about the time they had loaded me up in the ambulance, and she jumped in the back of the ambulance with me. And we went to Owensboro Hospital. And on the way, I remember telling her that, and I was already kind of wrapped up a little bit, that they put some, gauze or bandages on me. But my left thumb is where electricity came out, and it basically blew my left thumb off. It was barely hanging on with just a little bit of skin. And I remember telling my wife that I was going to lose my thumb. It was already pretty much gone. And I told her, I said, my grandfather, I told you, that lived 2 houses up, he actually passed away a few months before I was injured. But my grandfather was a single arm amputee. He got hurt on a combine and had his left arm amputated. And I remember telling my wife, Papa lost his entire arm, and I'm just going to lose my thumb. So it's really not that big of a deal. So they, once I got to the hospital in Owensboro, immediately the surgeons came in, and they needed to airlift me and get me out of here. So they had a helicopter come pick me up, and they would not give me any kind of medicine, pain medicine. They wouldn't give me anything. I didn't know why at the time, but I remember the helicopter coming and landing. I remember getting rolled into the back of the helicopter. I remember my feet touching the front windshield. My left shoulder was touching the window. I remember laying on this bed. I remember a nurse being behind me, and I was basically laying in her lap. And I remember a nurse being to the right of me, and then a bunch of equipment. And I remember getting in the air and heading to Nashville, Tennessee, which is a 2-hour drive for us. I don't remember how long the helicopter flight was, but probably 30 minutes. I don't even know. And once we got in the air, I remember me asking the nurse, like, why are we going to Nashville? I don't understand. And she said, everything's going to be okay. That's all she would say. And so she went on and prepped me and got me ready for surgery in the helicopter. And I remember her putting a cath in me. And I remember when they cathed me, looking at my urine looked like Dr. Pepper. And I didn't know what that was at the time. And then she stuck a needle in the side of my jugular vein. And I found out later on that when you get electrocuted, it burns you from the inside out, and it causes poisonous toxins inside your body. The poison has to go somewhere. So the poison in the blood that I had inside my body was going through my kidneys, which is why my urine looked like Dr. Pepper. So basically, it wasn't about my hands at that moment. It was more about my kidneys shutting down, and they were shutting down. And if they would have ever shut down, obviously I would have died. So they were really trying to hurry up and get me to where they could get rid of this infection. And I remember landing at Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville, Tennessee. I remember going down an elevator. I remember going down a hallway and into a room that I thought was a morgue. Everything was stainless steel. And that room was called hydro. And hydro is where they take a pressure washer and they wash your dead skin off of you. So my whole right arm was 30-degree burns. And they did all that with me completely awake until my wife got to the hospital to sign release forms to amputate whatever they had to amputate in order to save my life. I never knew that that was an option. And as soon as my wife got there, she signed release forms to do whatever it took to keep me alive. I had a fracture in my neck and I had a fracture in my back with the amount of electricity that I took. And immediately after she signed the papers, the doctor let her come in and my mom come in and basically, maybe say their goodbyes. And so went into surgery. I was put into an induced coma for 3 days, and they immediately amputated my right arm. And then on my left, they cut me from my elbow out to the end of my hand. And they said when they opened my skin up that it looked like a shotgun had went off on the inside of my hand. All my tendons were wrapped around my wrist. I would have never had any function in the hands, but that's not why they amputated. But for 3 days, they did amputations multiple times a day. They would just cut a little bit more and cut a little bit more until they could get my urine to clear up, my kidneys to quit, shutting down. And then basically 3 days later, I wake up laying flat on a bed, strapped down because of my fracture in my neck and my back. Had no idea that I didn't have hands. And I remember asking for my dad to come in the hospital room, and my dad wouldn't come in there by himself. So him and my mom came in, and basically my dad told me, he said, Jason, I don't know how we're going to get through this, but he said, I know that you're a fighter, and I know we've always had faith in one way or another. We're going to get through this. I don't know how, but we will. And that's basically where my story started.
Woo, 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 woo. I don't even know where to start, Jason. Thank God that you are here. You are a warrior. Wow. When you realize what had happened to you after coming out of the coma, did it affect you? Like, how did it affect you mentally?
So I feel like, I'm sure I was upset. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really remember the way I felt right off the bat. Like, as soon as he told me that, I mean, it was probably like shocked or, I remember thinking the things like, how am I going to provide for my family? You know what I mean? Here I got 2 little girls at home and a wife, and I'm 29 years old. My wife's 28 years old. The thoughts of, my wife didn't sign up for this, so is she going to roll out? I mean, that's the easiest thing for her to do. Just, I didn't want this life, so I'm gone. See ya. How am I going to put a roof over my kid's head? How am I going to feed myself? How am I going to dress myself? How am I going to how am I going to work? I mean, like, dude, it could go on and on and on. I mean, everything that you can imagine was like, how am I going to be able to do this? And I thought that, I thought my grandfather was the only upper limb amputee in the world because he's the only person I'd ever seen that lost an arm. So then I felt alone. You know what I mean? I felt like nobody's ever gone through this before. Like, I'm doing this by myself, 100% by myself. And so not that I was angry. I think it was just more of like, what's this look like? You know what I mean? Where do we go? Where do we start? And I remember going into my hospital room for the first time, like the regular room. I mean, when I woke up, I was in, CCU or whatever. But I remember going into my first hospital room and meeting my doctor for the very first time that did my amputations, and him sitting down with me and basically telling me everything that I told you that I didn't know before about my kidneys and about what electricity does, and the burns and why they had to amputate and all the stuff. He came in and told me about all that stuff. And as he sat down with me, it was just he and I. And his name was Dr. Guy. Jeffrey Guy is his name. And as we sat there, he told me, he said, Jason, it's going to be a long road for you. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to go to therapy. It's just a life-changing thing. And I'm sorry, but like, I want to help you reach one goal. And I don't care what that goal is, but I want to make sure that you set a realistic goal. And before you get out of this hospital, I want you to reach this goal. And he told me, he said, you're probably going to be in this hospital for months. And I remember telling him, I was like, I'm not going to be here for months. I cannot be here for months. My family's from 2 hours away. I got 2 little girls, a wife. Like, I can't be here that long. And so anyway, he went to get out of my room or walk out. And I remember telling him, I was like, hey, Dr. Guy, I know what I want. And he kind of come in there and sat down on the bed with me. And he was like, man, how do you know what you want? Like, I just asked you this. And I said, there's one thing, the most important thing in my life is my family, And I said, I don't know how, but I have to be able to hold my kids again. That's all I care about. And I told him, I was like, I'll figure out how to feed myself and do all that kind of stuff one of these days, but I have to be able to hold my kids. So there was a lot of tears that fell that day from him and I. But the next day, Dr. Guy promised me that would happen. And the next day, Dr. Guy came in the room and he said, Jason, your kids are here and I want to bring them in your room to see you. And I said, I don't want them in my room. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I got no arms for one. They're going to be scared. I got tubes hanging out of my arms. I got a feeding tube. I got catheters. I got heart monitors. I got wound vacs. I got, they had to do a skin graft. My whole entire right arm was skin graft. So my right arm was completely wrapped. So they took skin from the top of my knee all the way to my hip on both legs just to cover my right arm. So, I'm wrapped up, below my waist and hadn't been out of bed. And I mean, like, I looked awful. And I said, I don't want my kids in here. I said, I want to go to the waiting room. And he said, Jason, man, I can't take you to the waiting room because you have all this stuff hooked up. And I remember telling him, I was like, well, you can unhook it. And he said, Jason, if I take your feeding tube out and you don't start eating, I got to put it back in. And I said, that's a chance I'll take. So he unhooked me from everything. He got me up, got me ready, and I went to the waiting room that day. And that's when I held my kids for the first time. And I think that doing that first goal, even though like it may not sound really hard, that was the thing that was like, you know what? I reached it. I don't know what else I'm going to be able to do, but I reached my first goal, and I'm going to fight for my family. I'm going to fight for my kids. I'm going to fight for my wife, and I'm going to live this life the best that I can. And I remember telling my wife, once I got prosthetics, I wanted to be the best prosthetic user in the world. And I told her that if I ever find out about anybody else losing a limb, an upper limb, I will reach out to them. Like, I want to be that voice. I want to be that Google search, when you put in upper limb amputees, I want to be the one that gets popped. You know, the story comes up. And so after I held my kids, I told my doctor, Dr. Guy, I said, hey, what do I got to do to get out of this hospital? And he again told me, he's like, man, it's probably going to be months. And 12 days after being electrocuted, I was released from the hospital, and I came back to Owensboro, came back home as a bilateral arm amputee. But I was home. I did things that everybody thought I couldn't do. I was told, you know, I don't get to talk about my son very much. My son's 14, just turned 14. I was told I would never have any more kids because I took so much electricity. Now I got a son. I was told I would never be able to dress myself. I dress myself. I was told I would never be able to feed myself. I feed myself. I can travel by myself. I love to hunt. I was told I'd never be able to hunt again. I'd never be able to shoot a gun. I do all those things. I drive. I play golf. I throw baseballs with my son. Like, there is literally nothing that I've not figured out, that I have not done. And once I got home, you know, I mean, was it hard? Like, absolutely. You know what I mean? Like, I failed at everything I did millions of times before I was successful, but I didn't give up. And that's why I told my story at the very beginning of, you know, I watched my dad start with nothing and go through failure, but the failure just made him stronger. And that's what it did for me. You know, I mean, it just made me stronger. And today, you know, people, and this may think of some more questions, but today I travel the world. I was the first person in the world with the bionic hands. They're all myoelectric. I've been on CNN. I've been on Dr. Gupta. I've been in the Associated Press. I've been in magazines all over the country. I travel. I share my story with people. I'm a public speaker now. I worked with this bionic hand company, so I've been the first person in the world 5 times. I get to work with other amputees. I've been in a movie with Matthew McConaughey. I've been on an Apple commercials on the Super Bowl. I did an episode on Hawaii 5-0. I've done a MetLife commercial. I've done an Advent Health commercial in Florida. I still hunt. Like, I'm not bragging about all that stuff. I just work really hard, and nobody's gonna tell me I can't do something. You know what I mean? So
I love it.
Was there any animosity?
You're breaking up, Sid. Sorry.
Is it better?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Any initial animosity yourself or you know, your mom and dad, your parents, you know, was there any animosity at all? Did everybody, you know, come to the conclusion that that was the best decision to make?
Yeah, I mean, you know, my wife talks about it all the time. And if you get on YouTube and you look up Jason Koger testimony, you can see from the very beginning, that was our first video that we ever did. We did it for my church, and my wife talked. And, you know, my wife was also raised up in church, and she didn't believe in, you know, divorce or, you know, whatever. I mean, sometimes life sucks, you know, and, you know, none of us are ever granted a perfect life, and none of us ever will. We all go through different trials, and some of them are bigger or smaller or whatever. And, you know, when my wife made that decision to amputate, to save my life, it was because of my girls, you know what I mean, at the time. And I know, like I said, I don't talk about Axel much because he wasn't born then, but my wife was like, our daughters without a dad or our daughters with a dad. And our daughters needed a dad. I had a dad. I hate it for people that never experienced, you know, a great family or a great mom and dad. I had that, and my kids deserved that, you know, and that was my wife's number one thing. It's like, I mean, if they can save his life, man, we'll figure it out. Was I angry that she made a decision? Absolutely not. Like, you know, one of the biggest questions I get all the time is, would you go back to 2008 and that accident never happened? And I would say absolutely not, because I feel like God has a plan for each and every one of us. And even though sometimes we go through struggles, he didn't promise any of us it was going to be great. I feel like when you go through those struggles, he's just sitting there waiting, or he's saying, hey, I got your back if you'll let me have it. I'm going to open doors for you if you let me do it. And at the end of the day, man, it's just something that you just got to trust. You got to trust the process. You got to believe there's a reason. You got to find the reason, and then you move on. And today, the things that I get today, the people I've got to meet, has been so much bigger than I could ever imagine. And and again, I'm not going to brag about anything I've done, because at the end of the day, I feel like I'm still the same person I was. I still care about people. I still help people. I still love people. I don't hide from people. Like, I go out and see people. I don't care where I am. Somebody stops me. Hey, let's talk. But you know, one thing that really hit me hard one time was when I did the episode on Hawaii Five-0. I got to work with RoboCop from the 80s. His name's Peter Weller. And here I am on set. I've never met an actor in my entire life, and I'm around all these guys that are on this TV show. And then RoboCop was huge in the 80s, so obviously I knew what RoboCop was. And so I got to work with all those guys for about 2 weeks. And when we left, I thought, man, I'd love to be able to connect with them and be able to be a friend of theirs. But how do you become a friend with a celebrity? You know, I've never been around a celebrity before in my life. And so anyway, I started talking to Peter Weller, and I told him, I was like, dude, I would love to keep in touch with you somehow. And I don't know what that looks like. And he was like, well, let me give you my cell phone number. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. So, you know, he gave me a cell phone number. I gave him mine. I came back to Kentucky, and I was like, I'm never going to call RoboCop. Like, what do you say to him? How do you call him? What do you say? And I get home, and some time goes by, and before the episode comes out, my phone rings one day, and I look at my phone, and it says Peter Weller, and I'm like, man, he's calling me. So I answer him like, hey, man, what's up? He was like, hey, did you know that they came out with a new bionic hand? And I said, yeah, but my insurance won't buy it for me. I already got this one, you know. And he said, well, I just called the company, and I told the company that if they want their name mentioned on Hawaii Five-0 on national TV, they are to send you this new hand. And they accepted to do that. And I was like, are you kidding me? He's like, no, dude, you deserve it. And that's how I got a job. That's how I got to work with this bionic hand company. And I still work with them today. I'm an ambassador for them, and I share how technology works, and I test stuff out for them. And so he opened that door up for me. But the coolest story is he called me one day, like a month before the anniversary of my accident. And he said, Jason, I want to come to Owensboro, Kentucky and spend the weekend with you. And I was like, why? Like, you want to come to Kentucky, and where I live, nobody in my hometown's probably met an actor like this. So I said, yeah, let's do it. So I decided to have a party that time. That time he came in, because I asked him, I said, can I do something so people can meet you? I said, I'll do whatever you want. So I remember setting this party up, and I charged $10 a person to come in and meet RoboCop. And the next day, he and I were in my house counting this money, and it was $18,000. And I gave $18,000 to 7 different local charities in my hometown, because my hometown rallied around me. They did fundraisers for me. They patted me on the back when I was, you know, walking down the street or in a restaurant. They was hugging me. Like, it helped me so much. I wanted to give back. And right before Peter Weller left, and he and I we talk all the time. We were so close. But before he left, I said, why did you come to Owensboro? And he told me, he said, Jason, I've met about everybody that you can meet. I'm friends with all kinds of celebrities, right? People that die to meet these people. But he said, you have something that I need. He said, you have a faith that I need. And I want to surround myself with people that you surround yourself with. And when he told me that, it hit me in a way that, you know what? Sometimes we do look up to these celebrities, right? We do have these people that we envy, but those people need us too. And at the end of the day, all of us, I don't care how much money you have, how much money, where you live, what you live in, we all need each other. At the end of the day, we all have to have each other. And when this world will figure out that it's a lot easier when we're all together and we're all one, man, it would be life-changing. But it's kind of where I've been. That's kind of what's happened since my accident.
I want to ask, can you show your bionic hand again?
Yeah.
Cool. Can you move it? Like, Can we see?
So it opens and closes off my muscles.
Okay.
And then I also have wrist rotators, so it's a totally different muscle. So I can turn it either way. It doesn't matter. I can also stall fingers out, so I can, point. I can go into grips. So it does all that stuff. I have wrist, so I can bend my wrist, and then I customize them. So it's all my family. That's my kids on my arms, kind of like a tattoo. There's all my kids.
Okay.
This is a myoelectric, so I have wrist rotators in it too. So it's all off muscles. So my brain basically tells my prosthetics how to use, how to work. And I also have the body powered, which came out back in the Civil War days, like the old hooks that people seen. I have those too when I'm working. Depends on what I'm doing and what I wear. So.
Okay. So are these, it's a bionic hand and the other hand, are they made by the same company?
No. This hand is made by Oser. This is made by Phil Hour. My sockets, the black pieces, are made out of Texas by Arm Dynamics.
Okay. So did your insurance company pay for, this was gifted. Was this one gifted as well?
No, that was insurance. But okay. I get a lot of perks now just because I hate even saying this because I don't know if this is real, but I have been told by everybody that's in this business that I'm one of the best prosthetic users in the world.
Yeah, look at all the achievements you done. You done did A, B, C, D, and you got to hold your kids again. So right. You are like a warrior. Now, is the bionic hand chargeable? How does you charge it?
See that charger right there?
Yeah.
So I charge it up every night. It shows how much. I don't know if you can see it, but it shows how much left. So yeah, I can turn it on, turn it off, and I take them off at nighttime, charge them just like a cell phone.
Okay, and how many hours do you get on them?
Oh, I can get them 16, 18 hours a day.
Okay, that's pretty dope. Technology is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right. You're breaking up. We can't hear you.
What was the process of learning how to use the bionic hand? Was it difficult for you or a difficult process?
Not really. So when I feel like I can still feel my hand feels like it's right here. I can still feel my fingers and all that. So when I feel like I raise my wrist in there, that's what opens it. And whenever I feel like I lower my wrist, that's what closes it. So basically it just opens and closes. I had to train myself, but also I feel like training myself, I'm very mechanically inclined from I've been raised up on a farm, right? So like I know how to change tires, work on stuff. Like I can figure how things work. I understand how stuff works. So my brain is wired in a way when I look at this hand and I know how it works, I don't have to think about how I'm going to pick something up because I already know how it works, right? I think some people that are not successful being a prosthetic user is they just don't understand enough of how it works. And they're trying to figure out, like in their mind, they wait until their hand gets to, let's say, hold a drink. And they're like, all right, how am I going to grab that drink? Let me grab it like this. That don't work. Let me grab it like this. And then it takes them so much longer, and then they get frustrated. And my mind is, I'm going to pick up a drink, and I know exactly where I want to pick it up, and I'm going to do it before I even get to it. I pick it up, and then I'm done.
Now, is there a chip or something they put in you to make it connect to the brain? Like, how does...
It's just laying on my muscles. I just got a sensor laying on my muscle on the outside. So there's a sensor inside the socket, just laying on top of my skin.
So it just moves off of your filling.
Yep. So whenever, like if you hold the top of your arm and you raise your wrist, you feel your muscle go up. I just got a sensor laying on top of it. When I raise my wrist, it tells it to go up. But they are coming out with some stuff that will be internal. I don't know how it works, so I can't really say a whole lot about it, but I do know that there's things in the works. And
are you
a
candidate?
I will. I can be. So, yeah. So, I mean, I talk to doctors all over the country. I was supposed to have been in Israel a week after the bombings hit. And then they canceled my flight because of all the fighting and stuff there. But, I was supposed to go down and work with some doctors in Israel, and supposed to go to Iceland and Scotland. And I mean, all these doctors that are out of the country that, scientists and whatever else that, I have the ability to go work with them and talk to them. So I'm at the top for the most part.
I love it. I love it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. What was your relationship with technology, prior to that? Was that, even like even, believed in it, that much, being, old country boy doing things the normal mechanical way? What was your relationship with technology like prior to this?
I probably wasn't a very big tech type guy. Computers has always been not understanding as much. I mean, you're right. All my stuff was mechanical, right? Like, if you had to rig something up to make it work, you rigged it up. But the whole technology was, I mean, I probably have a hard time turning my TV on. I just don't watch a lot of TV, right? I just don't know how to do computer stuff. So it was definitely eye-opening on what possibilities can be out there. And I think with these scientists, and they're super smart people, but I think that they do everything they can to figure out how to give me my hand back. And they will never be able to give me my hand back, right? A real hand. But then you talk about like hand transplants. So they wanted me to be the first person in the world to do a hand transplant back in 2009. And but all the medicine you would have to take and all the therapy and being out of town, and I didn't want that. And I was a very good prosthetic user. And I think the hardest thing is not even like the technology, is people have a hard time seeing themselves different. And I don't. Like, I wear my prosthetics proudly. That's why I got pictures on them. I don't care if people stare at me. I don't care if people don't like me because of it. Like, I like myself, and that's really all that matters. I'm comfortable in my skin, and and I think that's another barrier that you just have to go, get across is, when you're different, man, you stand out, right? Most people, they think they're different, that they're weird. I think that if you're different, you stand out. Obviously, with me having the opportunities to do the TV stuff and the CNNs and all that, somebody else thinks it's pretty cool to be different too. And I try to tell that to kids. Like, my kids understand that when they see somebody at school different, you don't go bully them over it, right? And they're just different. And if we were all the same, it'd be a pretty daggone boring world.
And I was going to ask, you've done, I don't know if how many surgeries you have been through, or the prosthetics. This may be the only one. I'm not for sure. But I was going to ask, some of the advanced technology, do you ever feel nervous with new experiments? Because they are experimenting when it's new. And I mean, how do you feel about that?
I'm all game. Like, as long as, and this is what I tell them, if it can get infected and they would have to cut some more of my arm off, or if they'd have to cut above my elbow or at my shoulder, I'm out. I don't want, and if they say we don't know, like it's a possibility that if this don't work, we're going to have to amputate more, I'll tell them no. I have to be guaranteed that you're not going to have to cut any more off, right? That it's not going to affect the way I use prosthetics today. And if it does affect the way I use them today, because I'm such a great user, it ain't worth it to me. I don't care if somebody puts stuff in my body to try to make technology better. And it may not work. So if somebody's like, hey, we're going to put sensors in your arm. If it don't work, we just unplug it or we just pull them out. Hey, I'm fine with that. I just don't want a possibility of having to amputate anymore. So, I mean, I definitely talk to them and do a lot of research before I do anything.
And do you have like a full recovery of your kidneys, or do you still have issues with that, or what are any of the kind of lasting issues that you have on, being electrocuted?
Yep. No issues. Kidneys fine. I never went on dialysis. They amputated fast enough not to injure my kidneys. I didn't have any kind of back surgery, neck surgery, because it was a small fracture. So just from getting older, man, I'm getting sore from being older. But other than that, no, I think I'm good. I walked yesterday or day before yesterday, I guess. I told my wife, I said, I'm gonna start walking some, and just to kind of get my mind off the world sometimes. And I'm not a big walker or exerciser or whatever. And I walked and ran to a certain spot in front of my house and back. And then I drove to it to see how far I walked and ran, and it was 2 miles. So, I mean, I'm good, I think.
And I want to ask this real quick. And this is a spotlight for your wife. What would you say to your wife for making the decision and choice that she did when you got electrocuted?
Oh, I'm very thankful. I mean, I look at it today, like my oldest daughter now, retired. She ain't retired yet. She graduated high school. Dang. She graduated high school last year. She's starting her career as a nurse. My second daughter, that was 3 months old, is a senior in high school this year. She's wanting to go into anesthesiologist, so she's going in the healthcare field. And then my son's 14, which he wouldn't be here if I wasn't here. And or after my accident, I say my girls wouldn't be here either. But you know what I'm saying. After my accident, he plays baseball. He plays travel baseball. He plays football. He plays basketball. I feel like we have a pretty strong relationship. I still go outside and get to throw baseballs to him and hit with him. And, there's nothing better than me having my family, my kids, and can't imagine life without it. So I'm very thankful that I'm still here. I'm very thankful that I get to live this life that I live. I'm very thankful for the people I've met. Very thankful for the opportunities I've had. I'm very thankful for the doors that God's opened for me. Very thankful to be able to share my testimony to help others. It's really rewarding to go out, give a speech, and, have people give you a hug whenever you get done with it. And, before we got on this call, I was talking about my buddy Reggie, and Reggie and I talk a lot about, like, is it worse? Because he lost both his legs. He got electrocuted. And he's like, is it worse losing your hands or you losing your legs? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, what do you mean you don't know? And I said, well, I don't know what it's like not to have my legs. And you don't know what it's like not have your arms. Like, which one's worse? I have no idea. You look at somebody that, like you, for instance, that went through the abuse and stuff. Is it worse that you went through abuse, or is it worse that I lost hands? I don't know, because I wasn't abused, and you have your hands. You know what I mean? And I look at life so different, that it's not my story's bigger than yours, because we all go through different things. I've had people that's come up to me that's lost a single finger, and I've made them feel like they lost something. I didn't want them to feel like, I can't talk to that guy. He lost 2 hands and I just lost a finger. You know what I mean? Like, that person went through a trauma, no matter what trauma that is. So when everybody would kind of figure out that we all go through a trauma and we all need each other, it ain't about who went through something worse. You know what I mean? So I'm really big on wanting everybody to feel very comfortable about sharing their stories. I mean, that's how we get through this life, is sharing our stories.
And to wrap it up, our last final question, we're at time, is what advice would you give someone that is going through challenges and they feel discouraged because an accident that may have happened in their life? What advice would you give them from your life experiences that could potentially help them?
Don't give up. You got a purpose. We all do. Failure turns into success. It's hard work, but you really got to lean on God and make sure that you're trying to do the plan that He has laid out for you. And if you truly feel like you're doing your best at the plan He has for you, at some point it's going to open up and you're going to be like, wow, like, just, it's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a verse that Jesus says, you may not understand now, but one day you will. And that gives me the hope that, I don't understand. I didn't understand why I lost my hands at first. I think I understand why I lost my hands now, but I'm really going to understand when I get to meet my maker. And I just live my life that, no matter what, man, if I go through a failure, I'm going to continue to move on. And I may fail at that same thing multiple times, but I have a purpose. We all have a purpose, and we just got to go find it.
For sure. And before I go into my last question, my connection okay?
Yep.
All right. So like we do with all of our guests, we like to give you the chance to let our viewers know, your topics of interest, anything that you want to draw traffic or advocate for, how anybody watching this that was moved by your life experience can contact you, anything you might have for sale, any projects you want to put on the board, anything that you would like to share with our guests that may help you in your journey.
Absolutely. So anybody can find me on my website, just jasonkoger.com. I'm on all the social media stuff. And even though, like, some people may think there's no way he'd get back with me, I always find a way to get back when somebody writes me. I help with a foundation called Steps of Faith, which buys prosthetics for people that don't have insurance and they can't afford prosthetics. So I do a lot with them. And man, I have my own book. I wrote a book. It's called Handed a Greater Purpose. You can find that on my website. It's on Amazon as well. If you get on my website and try to send me a message, I can sell you a book, sign it, and mail it straight from here. I'm pretty hands-on. I know that's I don't like when people do stuff for me. So it comes straight from me. And I would love to hear what everybody thinks. I'd love the follows and the shares and the questions and all the stuff. And if anybody needs me, I do public speaking, and just reach out anytime.
And let me tell you, he does get back to you, because when I messaged him, I got a response in probably less than an hour or so. So yes, we were chatting it up. So yeah, I can vouch for Jason. He will definitely get back to you.
Yep.
Jason, we want to thank you so much for being a guest on Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast. We've kept and held a promise, and we just want to thank you so much. I'm sorry, y'all, my dog barking in the back. Then they want to do it when I'm about to end the podcast. I'm sorry, y'all.
You're good.
Jason, if you can hold a second, please, until we wrap everything up. See it. We're going to keep sharing life experiences, ain't we?
That's right.
That's right. For anyone that has been through electrocuted, if you've had a prosthetic, please reach out to Jason. He has a lot of connection. He knows a lot of people, as he mentioned, and they may be able to give resources to help you navigate through your challenges or difficulties that you may have, or just to be an ear to listen or to give you advice if asked. So we want to thank y'all. Y'all have a blessed day. Peace.
Here, you want me to do a piece too?
Yes, please. Yeah, let's see it. I love it. Peace.